Yeah, live. S-
All
So,
right.
Amanda, could you please introduce yourself here?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm Amanda Beckwith, the lead blender with Virginia Distillery Company. And we've been distilling and aging our single malt since 2015. And today I get to taste you guys through our Courage and Conviction American single malt. We launched it in 2020 and have been expanding the line ever since. And I'm really excited to geek out with you all. So at first, we're going to do our signature. This is going to be in the blue tin. If you originally had it there, we call it our flagship. And the great thing about American single malts is, like every single malt all over the world, it delivers a sense of place. And the mash bill is super easy. For you who might like bourbons or ryes, you're probably always wondering, well, what's the percentage of this or that? With single malt, it's easy. 100% malted barley. And really, it's just water, yeast, and barley that we work with. We always use two-row barley. It's kind of that idea of premium, quality over quantity. And where we really get to play is the barrels that we age the whiskey in. And so this one right here is a very nuanced and delicate layered single malt. It's 92 proof, and it's aged in first fill bourbon barrels, sherry casks from Spain, and cuvee wine casks from different parts of Europe. I'm really curious to hear some of your thoughts on the aroma and flavor. Yes. Oh, you guys are all muted, by the way.
Oh, this is incredible on nose. I haven't tried this. Oh, yeah, because, yeah.
I'm always struck by just the different notes that can open up over time. So even a tiny water addition, I get more vanilla and cocoa. But right off the bat, there's like green apple skin for me, a little apricot. That
Oh,
fruit
wow.
comes through. I don't know if any of you are getting tropical notes.
I'm getting some pineapple off of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm getting pineapple too.
When we first released it, our youngest component was 4 years back in 2020. As of last year, I've been picking barrels 5 and 6 year at the youngest. So it'd be safe to say it's a 5-year-old.
Surprisingly, it's very tropical.
Yes. So because we use bourbon barrels for roughly half of what goes into making this whiskey, all those beautiful, delicate fruit notes that start with the esters and fermentation get to stay present. And I really love that. So it's light and bright, but there's this nutty red fruit cocoa that comes in after a minute.
Yeah, now, people don't get what I just did, but I like to, part of my experience is I like to hold the glass up against my mouth, open my mouth, and inhale through my mouth, forgetting the nose. You get a lot of great raw honey off of this.
Honeycomb, absolutely.
I do, absolutely. Honey is very, very dominant.
I'm really excited to see what you think of the subsequent whiskeys, because we're going to peel it back and you're going to taste our whiskey aged only in the different cask types. So if you want to save any of this and come back to it, I'm really looking forward to hearing, oh yeah, now I identify this, I see where it came from. And that honeycomb note, I get in 2 different cask types. Sometimes from some of our sherry, and then often it still is driven through with our used bourbon barrels.
This is going to be interesting because I've not written the review I wrote years ago, and I want to see how it compares to this. I don't even remember what I said.
Okay. It's been really cool to be able to play with the different cask type ratios. It's roughly whiskey aged 50% in first fill bourbon barrels, 25% in these red wine casks, and 25% in sherry casks. And then after they've been aging for 5-6 years, blended together. And then slowly we add water to get it down to the 92 proof point.
I'm impressed with the fruit character in this. I hadn't expected that, but I think it is quite nice. And actually, I added a little bit of water to it, and I mean they're right up front with a little bit of water too.
Yeah, I think if we had aged in new char oak, we would have lost all of those beautiful tropical notes. I think that the oak would have overwhelmed and overpowered it. So there would have been more barrel spice, of course, but we would have lost the nuance.
Yeah, nice.
It's a nice buttery mouthfeel to it.
Yeah, a little butterscotch. One of the tricks, because I really care about mouthfeel, and it's always disappointing to have this whiskey that comes through as very sharp and angular or watery. And so we do this very, very gradual water addition to get it to bottling strength. A lot of times there's pressure to do it all at once, so you're ready to bottle immediately, but we call it landing the plane. And we've been known to take over a year sometimes to reduce whiskey very slowly, just a tiny bit every week or even once a month to really hone it in and get it just right before bottling. And I think that chemically it's preventing saponification, so you don't get the soapy, watery, lackluster, flabby whiskey, but also like that creamy, rich mouthfeel. It's important to preserve that along with the flavors.
Is anybody getting fruit cake on this? I'm getting a lot of fruit cake.
Yeah, rum soaked fruit cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a lot of fruit. I got honey. It is that very velvety, warm mouthfeel that's just smooth. You know, it's very nice.
You know, the fruit is not the stewed fruit kind of stuff. This is more. This has some cereal notes. So I mean, it reminds me of fruit cake. Very, very, and there is some pepper too. Towards the finish, you feel peppery.
Like a white pepper, almost like
white pepper. Yeah.
Yep, I love that.
Keith, your observation?
It's very bright for I mean, it's brighter than any other whiskey I tried. I mean, the fruit flavor is definitely a plus for this.
I love that you said bright because our bourbon cask aged whiskey that we're going to try next, that is one that I call the bright one all the time. And you're the first person I've ever heard use that other than me.
I'm also a coffee fanatic too. That's why.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
I'm waiting to compare it with your finished ones.
Oh, yeah.
So
the cider
bourbon cask, right?
So in this one, it's all your distillate, right? There's no blend from. Okay.
Correct. 100% ours. And over the years, since 2015, we've been taking less and less of the Scottish malt for the blended whiskey that we're going to be calling VDC. And we've been doing more and more of our own. It was 70-30 for a while, 80-20. And this year we're hitting 100% our whiskey in there. So it will be all single malts in all of our line. But the reason we did that was, you know, when we're getting started, we were thinking all these thoughts of, okay, how do we tell our story? How do we focus on what we're going to do? Of course, barley was super crucial to us, and whiskey being that sort of forefront. So there was pressure to do vodka or gin or rum, and we just thought, no, but why don't we tell our story of old world meets new? And so that's why we started off with blending all this. You guys ready to move on to that Purge and Conviction bourbon cask aged?
Are we doing bourbon
ready.
next?
I'm going to share this video and watch it.
Take your time.
Bourbon
Yes.
cask.
This is the one with the green top. And the smallest barrels we age in are these first fill bourbon barrels. So it's super sustainable for us to source just right next door in Kentucky. So it's just across the state line, a couple hours drive. And we have all these incredible relationships, Brown-Forman distilleries. We have a lot of Wild Turkey and Woodford. We started getting Willet last year. And for us, we'll just get the phone call saying, hey, we're dumping barrels this week, and we'll make a plan. We'll get them fresh, usually within 24 to 48 hours from the whiskey being dumped in Kentucky. So we love that. It's green and sustainable, but the quality of the barrels being so fresh is huge. So many Scotch distilleries are aging in first fill bourbon barrels as well, but they have to ship across the Atlantic, and some of them still disassemble those barrels and then reassemble them over there. And so it's just a lot more time and labor and expense. So it's really cool for us to be able to just say, well, they're our neighbors.
And do you lose some of that freshness of the barrel, I think, too, don't you?
Absolutely.
Because the air, loses it in the air, right? So what's still there and it's closed up, you get to save for whatever you have.
Yeah, that kind of is what started the whole idea of dechar rechar. for these bourbon barrels is like, well, how did these distilleries getting them bring out more of the good character that they want? And that is what inspired one of our other barrel types that I'll talk about in a minute.
So is this bourbon barrel, do you use the STR process for this?
No, we just get them fresh from Kentucky and immediately fill. So there is no scraping of the inner staves or anything done. We don't toast.
And your traditional single malt is a bourbon barrel too, right?
Yes. So the one that you just had is aged, about 50% of it is aged in first fill bourbon barrels. It's a blend of the three main cask types we work with. And so this
okay. Right, that explains, because this one is green apples and very citrusy.
Yes. Absolutely. There's like, almost like a lemon note that comes through.
Oh, yeah. Lemon tart. Lemon tart.
100%. I say that all the time because there's almost like a little bit of a graham cracker or cookie note.
More floral. This bourbon cask is more floral.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. You could tear this up with a good dessert.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Drum bars or lemon tarts.
Yeah.
Because, that cedar notes, that spice that comes in with the cinnamon on the finish, I love that. It's such a fun story.
Right. Everything would
Very
complement just really.
Is this the Nancy Fraley one?
No, Nancy just helped us out when we were getting started with the port and cider cask finishes. But I do send her samples all the time. I even named a bottling run, a batch in her honor.
Yeah, I have one of each, Jim Swan and Nancy Fraley. Yeah.
You do? That makes me happy.
Amanda, where'd you receive your training for blending?
Well, Nancy Fraley was a big part of it. Yeah, well, a lot of the mentors that I had were in Scotland originally, and they came over to our distillery back in 2015 when we were getting started, and they were so generous with their time. Harry Coburn, Jim Swan, they would come and just spend hours and hours in the distillery letting me just ask all the questions and work alongside them. And I learned a lot from them. Jim Swan passed away in 2017, but he left some of his journals for us. And those are treasure troves. He wrote emails connecting us to different bodegas and cooperages. So that's the gift that has continued to give. And then Harry Coburn, he is 86 this year, and he keeps retiring, but I think he loves whiskey too much to stop. He started out as the engineer at Bowmore on Isla, and he just he's so passionate and kind, and he was the one who set up our distillery, the flow of it, from the mash tun to the fermentation tanks, everything. And I look up to him so much. And the Nancy Fraley we hired to help us when we were first launching our VHW at the time, Virginia Highland whiskey, to do sort of the sensory and help with the cask picks. And she met me and she said, "You have a really good nose. You should be doing this." And then she kept saying that and inviting me to come do blending seminars with her. And then she talked to our CEO and said she needs to be your lead blender. And that's what happened.
That's very cool.
Yeah, Nancy is the nose.
She is. She's phenomenal and so passionate and kind.
So are you using any of Jim's STR
sure
process?
Yes. So when we're done with this, we can jump right into our cuvee cask. And the story with this is Jim Swan was hired by Cavalon in Taiwan to do this maturation program for them. And he placed an order for a lot of bourbon barrels, and they were told, "I'm sorry, but Speyside Cooperage has beat you to it. And you're going to have to wait months to maybe even a year to get enough." And he said, "Well, I don't want to do that. I've kind of been wanting to create my own cask type." So he reached out to the guys at J. Diaz in Portugal and a couple of guys in Spain, and they started experimenting. And they took that concept of de-char, re-char, and they found these really great premium red wine casks, emptied the wine out, shaved the inside staves of the barrels, just 3 to 5 millimeters, toasted, and then blasted with a char. And so they started calling it STR for shave, toast, rechar, or repair. And we go with cuvee because wine barrels aren't charred to begin with, so it's not a rechar. And we no longer have the barrels completely disassembled for every individual stave to be shaved. Well, we do it a couple places, but not every place. So we went with Cuvée because that's that run of the first wine in Spain, like that premium high quality. And the process is phenomenal. When you do that shaving, you're getting rid of a lot of the wine residue, and the balance with the barrel spice able to come out and work with those wood sugars and then the red fruit notes is just exquisite.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jim. I've met him personally on a couple of occasions. So,
Wow.
yeah. Okay, does anyone get ginger notes in this? I feel like I'm sipping on ginger ale. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
It does have that finish. It does have the zingy finish, that spicy zingy finish. that
Yeah,
ginger ale
spicy
does.
zingy. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's almost a bitterness, but you know, it stays sweet.
I'm getting a lot of clove also.
Yes.
What is the proof on this?
92.
Everything is 92.
Everything. Okay.
Our main line right now is all 46% ABV.
And what's your barrel entry? At what proof does?
62.5. When we started
Okay.
out, we were right around like the 61%.
Mhm.
And we learned very quickly that the humidity in Virginia is really going to be impacting our whiskey as it ages, because, you know, in hot weather, the barrels are expanding and soaking up the whiskey, and in cold weather, they're contracting and pushing it back out. In that process, all the whiskey can be evaporating through the angel's share. But in Virginia, we had these humidity pockets, and so the water vapor is being pulled in, and we're having natural reduction in barrel. So that's why some of our single barrels that I'm picking, you might find as low as 58% ABV. My record so far is 57.1 that I found.
So I'll ask you the question as far as if we can find barrel strength versions of your product, what are we going to look at as far as changes into the flavor?
Yes. So one of the big things, I mean, it really varies from cask to cask and cask type to cask type, but one of the big things that I really like is the shoulders on cask strength, because I feel like alcohol can be a really good conductor of flavor. And that's part of why, like, a lot of single malts are bottled at 40% ABV, and you're never going to see an 80 proof from me. I really don't see that happening. I really prefer to have, at least for the Courage and Conviction line, the higher strength, just to make sure that flavor is dominating, and that is present all the way through the mouthfeel. So everything's going to feel a little bit more intense, in a good way.
And yours is NCF, right? No colors and no
Correct.
chill
No
filtration.
filtering, absolutely not.
Okay, is that why you're keeping it at 92, because that's where you start?
That is also a magic number. Yeah. If you go below that, some of those long chain fatty acids will drop out. And so you could see more of that like flocculation or cloudiness in a bottle. Yeah, you could even see that at 92, but it's rare. Usually it would be lower than that. I like that you guys know your stuff.
And yeah.
I've been
And,
reviewing whiskeys a week or two. It's real easy to get into.
Love it.
Alexa, stop.
So yeah, the bourbon barrels are the smallest casks we age in, and from there we jump up to the sherry cask, which is the largest.
So, where do you get your? I mean, if you don't mind telling us, where do you get your bourbon cask from?
Yeah, a lot of Brown-Forman, and so
okay.
yeah, I think I mentioned before Woodford, Wild Turkey, Old Forester. Willet was our newest addition last year.
Willet is quite a score.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're not easy to get.
I know. Yeah, we've been lucky. So I've experimented with New Oak, and it's delicious in its own way, but I feel like for us, this profile that allows all those beautiful, delicate notes to shine, the tropical notes, I really like it. And that malty character still thrives too, versus the barrel dominating.
Yeah. So far, I'm enjoying whatever we've had so far. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like these.
We were talking about the Cuvée cask. If you want to jump into that one next, that's
we are jumping into Kuwait.
Yeah, we could do sherry. It's really fun. You could do either one, because we've been going with a little more delicate, and now we're getting more intense in our flavor.
So I've been sniffing on this one for the last 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
The banana, baked goods, vanilla bean, not just vanilla, but vanilla bean. And there's a little touch of pineapple under that too, which is a little unexpected. Gorgeous nose.
Which one are you talking of, Jeff? The
Cuvée
bourbon cask? Cuvée, okay.
Yeah, the banana is something that isoamyl acetate. It forms during our fermentation. When I'm walking through our tank area, I can just smell like banana walnut bread. It's so beautiful. And so finding that balance, you guys talked about ginger earlier, that should still come through, but balanced out by dried cherries and cocoa and pecans.
I mean,
I'm getting a lot of.
I'm done for the night if all I have to do is sniff this. This is the best nose I've smelled in a long time of anything.
This is very nice. Yes.
Well, I'm also getting some orange in this.
Yes, blood orange.
A little orange rind.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a little more intense, more like a peel.
Yes.
And really ripe some berry. I think it's raspberry. Oh yeah, the raspberries.
Yes. I get either raspberry or cherry from every one of these casks in one form or another, and I get chocolate in one form or another from every one of these casks. But it ranges. I might get Tootsie Roll, milk chocolate, ganache, or dry cocoa that's almost like dusty and mocha. It's just phenomenal. And we get these barrels from Portugal and Spain. We've been using some of the same cooperages that Jim hooked us up with back in 2015. But last year, I started, one of the guys who had worked in Portugal with Jim Swan moved to France. So I've been, for 1 year now, aging our single malts in some STR casks or cuvee casks from France as well.
Amanda, to be honest, I wish the mouthfeel was as good as the nose, because I think you'll have to dial up on the proof, maybe closer to 100, and there'll be a good balance between the mouthfeel and the nose.
That's one of the ones that I kept finding cask strength and going, yes, this is the one I want at cask strength. So
this would be good at 100 proof, I think.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean,
because it's the nose is and the finish is good.
It
Surprisingly,
has everything to hold up to it. I mean, it's very.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to lose anything. The notes are really intense.
Yes.
I think I'll let this sit for a while and see how it develops over. But the nose, I agree with Jeff. This is by far the best nose I've had in a long, long time.
The mouthfeel on this is just like drinking heavy whipping cream.
Yeah, definitely.
It's amazingly thick.
So,
which one is this? I just came in.
The cuvee.
Sorry, this is Julius. I was in a snowstorm drive.
Oh,
but
goodness.
Which one are we on?
I put the whole order in the chat so you can see. And we often have ended on tastings with this one right here because it is so dessert-like to me. I would pair it with a New York cheesecake with that graham cracker.
It is very
crust
dessert.
Or
The last two.
flowers chocolate torte with like a raspberry coulis. But I'm gonna. You guys are my guinea pigs, so I'm gonna see what you think of ending with
So
the cherry.
I have a suggestion. Next time you send out sample packets, include a mini cheesecake.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Well,
I could definitely
think
be
about
down with
food
that.
all the time. So these are meant to pair with food.
And even getting, I get a lot of coffee in this.
Yes.
A lot of coffee. The
I've
Kuwait
paired this
cask.
with a coffee, like a cowboy cake that's made with coffee, and oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah, more like mocha.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, I get a lot of tobacco out of this, and
Yes.
more of a sweet tobacco, but it's very tobacco-y, leathery kind of sweetness.
Yeah, it is leathery. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They get a raspberry creme brulee on this sherry. If we're still on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just
I
get
got a
a
question
lot.
for
There's just
you.
a lot here.
To go, I mean, I'm noticing all the complexity and nuances in these whiskeys. Can you talk a little bit about the grain that you're sourcing and where it's coming from? Because I know you said 2-row, but
Yes.
I mean that doesn't, it doesn't say much. So can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So all of our barley comes from North America. We have experimented with growing some on site, but the nitrogen levels in Virginia soil are very high, which is fine if you're growing barley to make beer. but not so much for a single malt.
Right.
So we do still get some from Virginia, and we have an incredible malting house in Charlottesville that does the malting for us.
Oh,
We
wow.
work with over
Who's that?
600
Which
farmers.
malting house?
Murphy and Rood.
Murphy and Root.
Yep. Yeah. But we work with over 600 farmers through the North Midwest into the southern reaches of Canada now. And so we do 2-row spring barley. And the idea with 2-row versus 6-row is, the better quality for getting all the nitrogen balanced out to have all the starches ready for our sugar conversion. But also we have so many different varietals that we work with. We just get a COA, a certificate of analysis, from each of the farmers saying, like, this is what we got for you. We say thumbs up. We get it. And we go through 2 tons of barley every run, and we double mash and double distill 4 to 5 days a week. So we go through a lot of barley.
Yes.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Can I ask you?
Nice to
It's
be
kind of
local.
Go for it.
question. So when we're looking at your barley and your farms, we spend such an effort in our lives of trying to be organic, non-GMO.
Yes.
How does farming for these grains play into that concept?
Yes. Well, something that Harry Coburn taught me was, one of the most important things is looking at the practices of the farmers. And through our relationships and everything, they calculated for us that we consume 15 times more CO2 than our entire footprint produces by having these sustainable relationships with the smaller farmers who can work together. And sometimes when you are doing non-GMO or organic, you're more likely to have bad years and things can happen and go wrong. So by having so many different relationships, if there is not the yield there that we want in one place, we're able to pivot and still have enough, which has been really, really crucial over the past few years with supply chain issues and drought in some areas and lots of rain in others. And so, yeah, that's been a gift for us.
Is there a standard or a goal that Virginia Distilling has as far as whether they are committed to non-GMO or organic, or as far as, where they source from? I know some distillers are starting to go that route.
Yes. Yeah, we've been working towards that for a while. I don't know the percentage. Again, I'm the blender, not the distiller, but from what I've looked at, that's been something that we try to do as much of as possible, just to make sure that everything is, we're trying to be reasonable and support the little guys as much as possible too. So striking that balance is always forefront for us. Another really cool thing is we take our spent grain. Bourbon, of course, you guys are very familiar with the whole sour mash process, and we don't do that. We have a mash tun. So our whole goal is to extract as much sugar as possible. So we use 2 separate waters to extract the sugar from the grain. The wort or sugary water is taken out. Our spent grain or draff is dried out and given to local farmers as free cattle feed. So if we were making bourbon or doing that sort of sour mash process, we wouldn't be able to do that. But again, focusing on sustainability, we have one farmer who has 2 different trucks, and he'll trade out when one is full with the other one. And we have that happening every 3 days. So it's just really great to be.
I'm sure they're happy to supply the trucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Free cattle
Especially
feed.
with the cost of feed right now. It's crazy high.
Yes. Yeah. And similarly, we have pot ales. So only 1/3 of what goes into our first copper pot still comes out as low wines to then be double distilled in our second still. But the 2/3 left behind is very rich in nitrogen. So it makes for a great fertilizer. And so some of the farmers we've worked with have taken that to use, or even local landscapers. So finding those practices has been really exciting for us.
That's interesting. Okay.
Thank you so much for that info. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and your stills are specially designed for your needs there. So
Yes, they were made in Elgin, Scotland, along with our spirit safe. So they're really beautiful. You guys have to come out and visit.
you'd be planning. Yeah. I've told Sam that probably this summer
We need to take a big road trip.
Yeah.
You've got my email. Just say you're coming. I will put you guys to work up in the cask houses. You can drill barrels with me.
Are you looking for like a night guard who can guard the casks?
I'll find out.
I work dirt cheap for that.
They've been teasing me that they're going to build a little cottage for me up by the cask houses, and then just have a zip line down to our batting house and bottling line, so I can just
nice.
Was this entirely aged in Cooey cask or?
Yes. So our Courage and Conviction line is all primary maturation, whereas our VHW, soon to be VDC line, is about aging in first fill bourbon and then finishing in cider or port or other casks.
So how long has it been aged? The Cooey?
We have on the label everything's aged a minimum of 4 years, but starting last year, I was picking 5 and older. This year, it's a lot of 6 year. So I'm really liking that 5 and 6 year age. Yeah, we've had a lot of evaporative losses, which has been a good learning curve for me. If you're in Scotland, you lose 1 to 2% a year for the angel share. After a long enough time, it goes down to almost nothing. Our first year, we were seeing 6 to 8%, some barrels 12% loss. So I got nervous. And my goal is for the whiskey never to be over oaked. So you never want to feel like you're sipping on our whiskey and chewing on a 2x4. And I think that we've really hit an average of 3 to 4% loss annually from some of our casks, still hitting that 6% from a lot of them too. So after aging, 7 years.
So you guys do a 7-year aged barrel, you're going to lose what, 30% more than what Kentucky does?
Yes.
In Virginia? Oh, wow.
I mean, Kentucky, depending on the location, but yeah, we have a very dynamic climate. I mean, our barrels have seen highs of 108 and lows of -4, and you just don't see that in Ireland, Scotland, or even really Kentucky.
Yeah, that's more like a subtropical climate there.
We are a subtropical climate. That's what Jim Swan taught me. He said, you're a 4-season subtropical climate. And I'd never even considered that before.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good with that. A lot of flavor developed very naturally, very quickly. The aroma depth, you're seeing that right now, but it does mean I could wait for 15 years and have a lot of bone dry casks. And so what we've started to do over the past 4 years is have little data gatherers, trackers inside the cask house. And so we have 2 metal-clad cask houses. We don't climate control at all, but there are microclimates inside them, depending on, the airflow from the open doorway when we have that open, or, the range we have.
What level?
As high as 6 high. Yeah. So I've got thermal banding and humidity pockets. And so I'm seeing some barrels that I think, this will be delicious in 10 years. And others I'm thinking, no, this will be ready in 1. I need to go ahead. Wow. Yeah.
Do you rotate ever, or do you just leave them right where they're at?
Leave them right where they are. Yeah.
So that way you learn what you're going to get from that spot.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah. When we started out, we were doing more of the racking system that we'd seen in other places. And in my sherry butts, I'd actually had on the Solera, which made no sense at all because I kept picking barrels on the bottom underneath everything else. And of course, we're not topping off the whiskey. When the barrel's empty, it's empty. So we had to have specially created pallets. A full sherry butt weighs on average 2,000 pounds. So we had to have them very strongly reinforced. And this way they're accessible. So we can just use a forklift, bring the pallets down, access the whiskey, and then put them right back. So that way I don't have to go up high to do sensory on the 6th tier.
Now, there's a concept of barrel aging being vertical versus horizontal. Are you guys looking into that difference as well?
Yes, because if they're stored, I mean, depending on the size or the side, the contact isn't happening with the barrel head if it's stored one way. And the other way, it's, what is the stress happening on the staves? All of that has to be taken into account. And everything does seem to affect over time. So right now I'm really liking the palletizing. It makes a lot of sense. And I feel like there is good airflow. So, and again, accessibility is huge.
Or you can fit so many more also in a rick house, right?
Yes. So our first cask house was a very small dunnage style. At capacity, could only hold 600 casks. And we outgrew that very quickly. Our metal clads can hold 6,000 plus, depending on how tightly we pack those pallets in. And it's just been really interesting to compare everything from the same barrel types, just totally different aging.
So what are you producing a day?
Well, on a single run, if we're filling bourbon barrels, we can fill 6 from a run. So that would be 12. If you're doing sherry butts, which are larger, 6 to 8 on a single day. What we do, though, is we double distill 5 days a week mostly. We'll sometimes do a half day for a cleaning day. And then we have 1 day a week where we just fill all the casks. So it's a barreling haul full of just fill up the barrels, hammer the bung in the bunghole, up they go to the cask house on the hill.
Any plans down the line for peated or smoked or whatever you want to call it?
That was my next question. I love peated.
Yes. I have experimented and I really like it. So one of the things that I am probably going to continue to do is for our currently blended whiskey, the VHW, I like to do just a little tiny whiff of smoke in there. Nothing really aggressive, nothing dominant, but that extra layer, it makes me really happy. And that's something I plan to continue to do. We have one of the things I don't want to do is create a mess for the system changeover with our mash tun. Imagine we were to bring in the barley that was already, malted and peated. It would get into everything. We'd have to cut everything off, do a complete transfer over, make sure everything was separated out. So what I've been doing for experiments is peat smoking casks or getting casks that held whiskey over an Isla and using those.
That is very Dr. Swan-like.
That's what I grew up on, Isla. Good
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah. No, that is Dr. Swan's idea for Kavelan, peated cask instead of peating, because exactly as she said. That's a very interesting, and I love that peated cask. And
that does give you a good whiff too. I mean, and it's not overbearing.
Right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
even for those people that don't really are turned off by that piece, just that little bit, might get them into it. It's not so overwhelming.
I think a lot of people in their first time having a single malt, it's a peated Scotch. And so they have something like Lefroy and they get burned. And it breaks my heart because when you can strike that balance like Bowmore, oh my gosh, it's exquisite. Yes.
I'm more of a Hazelburn Springbank fan.
I'm with you, Cayenne. I'm with you.
Now you
Now,
can
Amanda,
see the whole line behind me.
I started off my peated journey with Lagavulin 16.
Oh, lovely.
Which was the biggest mistake of my life.
Oh,
it took I love it now.
Yes,
it's one of my favorite scotches now. But when I was starting off, I didn't.
It's pretty intense
for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, though. I mean, we're talking a lot about
Greyhound.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt somebody.
Oh, I was just saying, I started with the Greyhound, Topataten Greyhound or Ghost Hound.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Well,
At least you start with the Octomore.
Yeah.
I did.
was great.
No.
You started with the Octomore?
I loved it. I don't. It was
There
that
you go.
quick. And then I
started with the Octomore.
Go big or go home.
I couldn't taste anything else for the whole day, but it was great.
That's right. No, you don't.
Octomores are a treat.
Oh.
So my question for you, I got a couple things. I mean, we're talking about Scotland. We're talking about all these other regions that are recognizable. Is there anything about you being in Virginia that you're trying to? You've mentioned a couple things that are very Virginia, like the climate and things like that. But is there anything that you're trying to do to create provenance and make your whiskey really stand out in this malt whiskey environment? And I have another question for you too. I'm sorry to throw it on you, but I've been quiet. And then that whole thing that was going on with the American malt whiskey.
Yes.
Right. So once you answer the first question, what were your thoughts on that? And what were you trying to promote in the category?
They tie together beautifully. One of the things about Scotland that's so cool is they really do hone in on the sense of place. And you got the different regions from, Highland and Speyside are pretty similar, but when you get down to Campbelltown or the Lowlands, they really play up the differences. And I realized pretty quickly that the entire nation of Scotland, with all its variances, could fit inside the state of Virginia.
Yeah.
And so when you think about American single malt as a rising category, there's a lot of potential there. So jumping to your second question before I come back to the first, we're founding members of the American Single Malt Commission, and there's not been a significant new whiskey category since the 60s. And in America by the TTB. And
by the TTB, okay.
Yes.
And that was bourbon.
Recognized legally. Yeah. So we've got bourbon, we've got rye, and then there are some interesting variations. So we could talk about Tennessee whiskey and, get into the different sides there. But for us, we thought, well, we need to protect the consumer. When they see single malt, they should know single location, malt, barley, and they should have a couple other things just to kind of make sure they understand, oh, all right, this is what I'm drinking when I see this label. So Westland in Seattle. And us, we really were the drivers, but we got in with a team in Texas at Balcones, Stranahan's in Denver, Colorado. Westward came on board pretty quickly from Portland, Oregon. It's been so exciting to see all these different distilleries saying, oh yeah, we want to be part of this and work together because a rising tide raises all ships. So we have a real sense of place coming through. Westward is all about the beer scene, which makes sense. Portland, they have all these great breweries, so they treat their single malt all along the way almost like it's a beer, and that comes through on the taste. They do a Pinot Noir finish because they're so close to the Willamette Valley. So they have that sense of place. Balcones in Texas, they have a 1 loud and proud on the center of their label, and they only age for a minimum of 1 year for some of their single malts because it's so dry and arid. They could wait 3 or 4 years and have empty barrels. So totally different than us. Denver with Stranahan's, they're talking about the Rocky Mountain water, which is really great. And now we've got places like Whiskey Del Bach playing up mesquite smoke as an alternative to peat. So I think there's a lot of
yeah, I've tried that one, the one from New Mexico.
Yes, Santa Fe.
What was that again? I didn't hear that. So
there's Copenhagen too. That's in Santa Fe,
yes,
Mexico. That is amazing.
Coquegan, yes, Colin.
Coquegan, yeah, Coquegan, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, really great stuff. So,
aren't they trying to do a association putting together an American single malt class?
Yes.
Together
yes,
like that?
We started the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission, and we've been working together on a lot of fun projects. In fact, we all got together and filmed a video to send our messages to the TTB saying, hey, thanks for moving forward with this, because we just closed the comment period. We are about to have it ratified. And so, yes, it's been a long journey. Almost 8 years we've been working on this. So
do you find yourself frustrated at all with the limitations on, barrel entry and all that stuff? Because, I mean, to limit it to 160 and not be able to go beyond that. I mean, you're a blender. You want everything at your fingertips, right? And now you're being limited as to what you can actually put into these single malts. Is that something that concerns you, or you'd rather just...
I feel like I can still do a lot within this framework, so it didn't bother me at all. The scariest thing wasn't for us at all. It was for Balcones, because again, the Scotch Whisky Association got involved, and they for a while were saying, well, we think it should age a minimum of 3 years, which we've never released anything younger than 3. It's not even on my radar. But for Texas, where it's so dry, that was a huge slap in the face. So they were very concerned. Some of the things like, can it be aged in an oak vessel exceeding 700 liters? Like, that's not a problem for us. I'm not going larger than the sherry butts. 500 liters is great. So yeah, the framework worked really great for most of us. And we conceded I think it was just the whole, we were not going to do a minimum age requirement of 3 years. That was the one big thing that we were like, okay, we understand. And
that's just because of different climates, right? Or else you would have to have, or else you would be forcing them to have climate control in order to maintain at least something in the barrel.
Right. And a couple distilleries in Texas that who work with Nancy Fraley, what they do is they enter their barrels much lower than 62.5, which is the highest legal limit that you can for any American whiskey. But after a month or two of aging, they'll add 20 liters of water directly into the cask to help mitigate some of that. So that blows my mind because it's the exact opposite of what I would want to do with everything so humid. But yeah. To wrap up, Laura, with kind of bringing it around, because we have this massive variance within the United States, I would love one day to have regions like a Northeast American single malt or something like that. I think that'd be so cool. And so, we do really harp on the whole Virginia aspect, just to kind of give that sense of provenance.
Well, I think American single malts are going to change the entire market dynamics in the coming years. I'm telling you, I'm seeing that already.
I'm excited. There's so much.
And I prefer them over bourbon as well. So I mean, I like all these new things I'm finding. We don't get these here, or that I haven't found anyway.
Yeah, I think we have a couple locations in Memphis. I'm trying to think of where else in Tennessee we might be. But if you go to our website, vadistillery.com, you can plug in your zip code and it'll show you if there's any place around you that.
Yeah, there probably is something down in Memphis.
Fingers crossed.
It's just sometimes it's don't want to drive to Memphis if I don't have to.
Fellows, we will be doing an exclusive cask strength with Amanda sometimes later this year. Only
Awesome.
cask strength whiskeys from Virginia Distillery.
That'll be
That's
fun.
fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah, because I couldn't include this. I had one here which Amanda sent me, but I couldn't include it in the packet. But it was going to be too much.
Just a sneak
So,
peek.
so do we have
Consider-
time to taste one more?
Yes.
No,
Sherry
two more.
cask.
Two
Two
more.
more. Okay,
Oh no, I mean we have sherry cask and then we have two.
that's right. We have a bunch.
The Southern Port,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We sent you
Yep.
a lot. We should
So
at
what are
least
we
do a
doing
sherry
next?
cast now.
Cherry.
So this one was fun. Most of you have had, I'm sure, scotches that are sherry cask finished, and usually it's
A lot.
Oloroso or PX. And so what's crazy about this is, and again, credit to Jim Swan, he said you should do primary maturation because of your subtropical climate, and that's what we did. And he also said you can play around with other sherry types and see what works for you because it is going to be more humid. You're going to be able to do things that Scotland couldn't. And so we started out with a couple other sherry types, and what stood out to me pretty quickly was Fino. And what at first was just very light and bright and tropical turned into something almost nutty, like Honey Nut Cheerios after 4 or 5 years of aging. So this sherry cask is aged in Fino, Oloroso, and Pedro Jimenez casks.
Oh, all my favorites. Okay.
Yes, mine too. Before blending it together. And I love those layers.
Oh,
because-
this feels like stewed apricot. This
Yes.
is all and oh man, this is so
Honey.
good.
Apricot, that's just one of them.
Mm.
I picked up plum, cherry, raspberry, blueberry, and strawberry, along with chocolate.
A lot of
Yes.
chocolate. Yeah.
It's,
This is that one I said that was like a fruit creme brulee. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm off
man.
That one.
This is multi-layered. This is so good.
so you know how I really love the nose on the cuvee? I
Mm-hmm.
think this beats that.
I was about to say that this beats Kuwait.
Now you understand the order that I've gone to.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
this is very, very smooth and creamy.
Yeah, if this smile tells you anything, I cannot stop
Have
blushing. It's so good.
Oh.
Yeah, this is
You
a
like that fruitiness,
solid
don't you?
sherry.
Oh yeah.
Get a lot of that in that.
Yeah, Oloroso.
Oh, wow.
Goes well with burnt
Nutty.
ends, by the way.
Yeah. But you guys said
Yeah,
it
of
plum,
course.
And
the
brisket.
red fruit. Absolutely.
Yep, that's what I'm
Oh,
having
this
right now.
is so good.
I just did it.
This is my like pair it with charcuterie whiskey. So like smoked meats and cheeses.
Oh yeah, I totally
Chocolate if you
agree.
want, of course, but like the
This-
savory, it's there.
This is. I personally would pair this with octopus and
Grilled octopus.
yeah, grilled octopus. Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, man.
Actually, this would be
You know, I
good
think
with
this needs to be
any
paired with
barbecue.
cheesecake
I
also.
think any smoky
Yes.
barbecue, it would be
Oh,
very
yeah.
good with that.
Yeah.
Just because of the sweetness and the fruitiness.
Yes.
Oh, this is so good. I mean, on nose. Now let me. Hey, welcome,
Let's
Julius.
see what you guys. That's what I have right here going on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh man, this is.
And it's perfect pairing for this.
Barbecue.
Now, Amanda,
it's freaking great.
Do
Yes.
you have available somewhere each of these individual casks, or are they all only blended?
So, I do have them individually. I've started to do single barrel picks of the Olo and the Fino now as well, mostly just in Virginia, Ohio, maybe Texas. So it's coming out very slowly because I'm very picky about what barrels I release. What I don't have any of yet is so in addition to like all of our barrels are mostly Quercus alba, American white oak, but I do have some Quercus robur, which is Spanish oak that is incredibly rare. This grows gnarled from the roots all the way up the trunk. You have to be an incredibly skilled cooper to make barrels out of them. And usually they sit on the soleras in Spain until they fall apart. But thanks to, again, a Jim Swan connection, I was able to get a handful of them. And I've started to do a small amount of those true Spanish oak in the sherry cask that I've been releasing. And
Amanda,
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, NPX. So if you're getting any coffee notes and that leather, that often comes through from them. And I don't have any plans to do single barrels of that, but I'm going to do a little blend just of Spanish oak sherry.
But you've got stuff available at the distillery if we took a trip up there.
Yeah.
Any thoughts of Amberana barrels?
Yes, potentially. I've got some experiments that I'm working on. If I do release them in the near future, it would be like a small blender select of just probably 4 or 5 barrels blended together.
Yeah, sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
and that would be a finishing versus maturation from what I've got right now.
So how many more years do you have before that would become a?
I'm not sure. This year's release is the Spanish oak, and I'm not sure yet. Probably 3 minimum.
3.
We'll see. I don't
how about a Japanese barrel that
okay.
Mizunara?
Yeah,
Mizunara,
I have a story about that. I love Mizunara. Again, very difficult to work with. They have to be growing for 2+ centuries before they can legally harvest those trees. And then you have to have someone who really knows what they're doing make those barrels. And I paid for a handful and they did not pass spec. They were splintering and just not what we wanted. And so we made the decision, like we
could
wait.
cut them up and put them in a barrel. Probably. You could do that.
I'm such a traditionalist. No. I probably could have, and it
No.
would be delicious.
No.
I'm a purist.
I may be a kind of thing.
So it's a delayed plan, but I would love to get my hands on some really good Mizunara. Maybe down the road.
I may be a contrarian, but honestly, I think Mizunara is overhyped. I'm honest. I've tried a lot of Mizunaras, and
I've seen it done well, and I have seen it as a waste. Sadly.
No, I'm talking of. Mizunara as a medium to age malt whiskeys or rye or whatever, because the sandal note overpowers everything in your.
The sandalwood does dominate.
Yeah, so the sandalwood note completely ruins the nose for me.
Okay.
And I've tried some of I've tried the best of the best Mizunaras, and it completely dominates the distillate. So I'm not a big fan of Mizunara.
You need a strong rye.
I'm a complete opposite. I think it elevates everything.
Yeah. Okay.
I like that flavor too, but it's very dominant, and if you want to try it almost over dominates everything. So that's all you get.
Yeah.
So,
Amanda, have you tried doing Tokaji casks?
I'm sorry.
Yet. I have not tried that.
Oh, I've had some stunning whiskeys finished that way, and just beautiful, sweet dessert like.
Which one's Jeff? I missed you on that one.
Tokaji.
Good question.
Tokaji, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've had other whiskeys, and I thought it was gorgeous. So it's on my list of eventual play around with, but have not gotten.
As you're talking about finishing whiskeys and different flavors that are out there, a good question for you, little controversial, would be some of these distilleries that are out there that are finishing, and they're using wet barrels. They're finishing for 2 weeks, a month, such short time, but because of the wet barrel, the flavor. They're like apple brandy, and it tastes like apple brandy. It shouldn't taste like apple brandy. It should have, flavors associated with it. Right. What is your thought process as far as the finishing, aging? If you do something, how long would you want to finish it for? What would you like to see out of that?
Yeah, again, I guess I'm a traditionalist. So our finishing times are really more like second maturations. And I do worry sometimes that people will have those expectations. Maybe they've had something like Jim Beam apple and they go for our cider finished whiskey, and it's whiskey. There's green apple on the nose, some baked apple and cinnamon on the palate. There's beautiful like honeysuckle to pecan notes coming through. It's gorgeous, but it's not juicy or like cider forward if they're comparing it to what you just said. So hopefully, I think well, we got Whiskey Advocate's top 20 whiskeys of the year for that one. So I guess a lot of people like it, but I do think for the newer consumer, they might not know and they might not appreciate the more subtle, delicate interaction that we do, because we want the wood to be the hero, and it has to work its way into the staves before it really can extract what was in there before, instead of just splashing around in it.
Have you ever thought of Kashasha barrels? Because I feel your distillate is going to really blend well with Kashasha.
You drink my share of caipirinhas. Yeah, that'd be really fun.
Brazilian cachaça. I've never seen a whiskey barrel with that. That would be interesting.
Oh no, that'll be really interesting. Yeah,
yeah, I have not gotten any of those barrels. I'll have to look and see if I can. That could be really cool.
not rum, Kashasha. It's completely a different beast. And I've seen. I personally feel your malt type is very suitable to Kashasha. I mean, it probably is going to.
Yeah. I've done some rum finishing, and it's lovely. But yeah, okay. I feel inspired now.
I want to see a rye finished in Kashasha. Laura, if you can get this word through somebody, get a rye finished in Kashasha, because honestly, that's going to be a perfect. It's marriage made in heaven kind of thing.
Do we want to try the cider or the port?
We've been talking cider. We should do that one. It'll be a big change up. So almost like drink water if you can, because sherry is intense, and now we're going light and bright again. But this is a fun story. So when we were getting started, we were looking around for inspiration in Virginia, and again thinking, how do we tell Virginia's story? And we're surrounded by cideries. In fact, of our 100 acres, a lot of that land originally was orchards, and we've got a couple incredible cideries near us. So we work with Buskey Cider in Richmond. We work with Potter Cider in Charlottesville. And we've given them a lot of our used barrels. And they'll age their cider, which is always dry style, in our barrels. And then we'll take the barrels back. And we've also started to work with Laird's, which it's based in New Jersey, but they have distillery license #1. So they're the oldest legal distillery in the United States. And their distillery is 20 minutes from my distillery in Virginia. Cool. Yeah, who knew?
Oh, with the production facility. Yeah.
Yep.
Most people don't realize they're in Virginia.
Yep. So I have roughly 200 barrels from them, and we'll keep trading those out. I have some barrels we've traded back and forth 7 times now. So it's incredibly sustainable, and just keeps reinvigorating the wood. So I've also put around with some Calvados from France. So again, I'm inspired by the old world and the new, and it's such a fun story because honeysuckle, vanilla, green apple skins, all on the nose. And then when you taste it, it's a richer, more baked apple, cinnamon spice note.
So what is the blend we're looking at on the cider cask finish? Is it Scotch and yours?
Yeah, this one right here will be whiskey that's distilled and aged in Scotland a minimum of 6 years in first fill bourbon barrels, then brought over to us, married with our own whiskey that's been aging in first fill bourbon barrels, and then moved together into the cider cask to integrate, develop those nuances together before bottling. So at this point in time, what you got is probably 70% our whiskey distilled and aged in Virginia, 30% roughly distilled and aged in Scotland.
Did you say this is the last year you're going to do Scotch? I mean, from Scotland? You're going to use your own, huh?
Do we know what region of Scotland? Are you able to say what region of Scotland this is from?
Speyside region.
Okay.
Yep.
It's really nice actually to see you using apple. I mean, historically speaking, there's nothing more, I mean, other than rye whiskey. It's very old school traditional Americana, and like apple brandy is older than all of it. Peach brandy as well. Have you ever considered, I mean, with all the fruit notes that you're looking at here, and the fact that you were at Mount Vernon at the whiskey festival, and you're aware that, peach brandy is one of those very significant, pre-pro spirits, I mean, pre-Revolutionary War spirit.
Yes.
So if you're trying to do old school Virginia, maybe an old peach brandy barrel, maybe one left over from Mount Vernon even,
That could be really cool. Yeah. It's funny because I already get green apple skin and peach apricot notes from our fermentation. So I think that could really enhance both. Yeah.
That's what made me think of it.
Yeah. Geeking out again. Mount Vernon was started by, of course, George Washington, but his farm manager, James Anderson, came from Scotland, and he'd been a barley farmer for the 4 largest Scottish distilleries. And so he was the one who told George Washington, like, we should start a distillery, and Washington loved to imbibe. So he was pretty easy to convince from what I read. But his plan, James Anderson, was to make single malt style whiskey at Mount Vernon, but the rocky ground was just not ideal for growing it. And what was growing really well was rye. And that's what was happening all over the colonies. Everybody could grow the corn or the rye more easily than the barley. And so I believe the first mash bill for the Mount Vernon rye was just 4% barley, which has all the enzymes you need for the alcohol conversion. But again, it's more expensive and difficult to make. Today, we've got the technology that they just didn't have back then. So it's almost like we're making the original plan come to fruition.
Yeah, it's quite nice to see the history.
Yeah.
This is an apple cobbler right hot out of the oven.
Yes.
Like, if you're going for this flavor, it hit it from the nose to the taste. It's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
I'd say the nose is actually pretty light and approachable for me. Like it kind of lures you in, and the flavor just really explodes. Like it's kind of like, I think earlier someone said, I wish that the actual sip matched the nose of this. I think it's the exact opposite here. It eases you in and then takes over. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
It also has like a very boutique-y honey finish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it reminds me of a lot of a very. I mean, there's a Scotch whiskey I've been hunting a lot for. It reminds me of this actually.
Oh,
Which one is that?
The Glen's Bay?
2021. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
nice.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you have that right next to you, Keith. It's fantastic.
Actually, it is very close.
I have 3 more bottles in my closet. I've been searching for more, but
This has an amazingly short finish.
It can build, but yeah, it's very light. And I've paired it with everything from I talk about this one a lot. Baked brie and puff pastry. Just drizzle some honey on top, have some candied walnuts or pecans, or sharp cheddar cheese. You could go a totally different route, or apple pie and vanilla ice cream.
This is musty.
It has a zing to the end of it, like a citrus zing to it.
Quite a zing.
Yeah. Oh, I love this.
At the risk of sounding really basic, I kind of want a rosemary Triscuit right now.
Okay.
I don't know why. I feel like they would go great together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it would.
The savory rosemary, the salty sea salt on that. Yeah.
the cheddar
A
one.
brie and honey and raspberry, I think would go too.
That would be nice.
I'm not a huge person who's experienced single malt whiskeys with cocktails. It's more bourbon or rye. But some of these flavors, I'm thinking, could be really nice. I don't know if you guys have experimented with any recipes at all.
Yeah, I did one. I called it the Nutty Apple, and I used nocino. So again, just playing up the nuttiness even more. That was a lot of fun. We have a couple of the recipes I've written on our website, viadistillery.com. Just look at the cocktails. And I think 2 or 3 have the cider finished whiskey as their base. Yeah, I don't make as many cocktails as I used to. I guess I'm just a neat whiskey sipper, pairing it with food most of the time, but occasionally the mood strikes and I think, okay, cocktail time.
Yeah, me too. Very rarely do I make cocktails. I mean,
There's so many Amaros that are out there that you can explore with.
So
yes. The whiskey, can we do one more? Do we have time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Which one is that?
The port cask finish.
Okay.
This is one that I do more than any other put in cocktails. And Amaro Montenegro and this are a match made in heaven. I'm picky about vermouth, especially if I'm at a restaurant. You never know if it's like not the best, freshest vermouth. And so I like going with a black Manhattan instead of a regular one, and just playing up that Amaro is just my favorite.
What would be your bitter of choice?
Oh, so I like chocolate bitters. Cardamom bitters are fun. But I guess classically, a good orange bitter with a little bit of that cinnamon bark coming through is really nice. And yet,
color on this is nice.
I guess they're right there.
This would go good with some jamon or prosciutto.
Yes. Yes. So this one was the first whiskey we ever released, and this was the one that Nancy Fraley helped us out with. The idea here is, again, bring over barrels from Portugal that held port, but also local Virginia wineries will do a port-style dessert wine. And so we will move the whiskey that's aged in first fill bourbon barrels into both those types of barrels, and then I'll blend them together. And I use tawny and ruby port. So if you're getting that juicy red fruit note, and then the more nutty dry, it's just great to have those layers.
Oh, the strawberry on the nose is great.
Ruby port.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm getting a lot of I think it's Tootsie Roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, taffy and caramel both.
Do you get that little whiff of smoke? Like it's not in your face,
Yeah.
it's not aggressive, it's just lurking there on the edge, the periphery.
Oh, this one needs a cigar.
Yes. In my head, I was thinking, like, how do we tell the story and grab the bourbon lovers and the Scotch lovers and show them, hey, this is American single malts. It can be the best of both worlds, but its own thing.
That
What
whiff
is-
of smoke actually comes out when I drink a drop of water.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more pronounced. Chad.
Yes. Releasing the surface.
I'm getting a
I'm-
chocolate bomb out of this. It's
I-
dark chocolate, real heavy.
I'm getting herbally note. Some herbal.
What is this one that we start or opening? What's this one?
This is the port cask finished whiskey.
Oh, okay.
And where is the podcast from? Is it from Portugal again?
Yes. So it's roughly 70% port barrels from Portugal and 30% local Virginia wineries that do port style dessert wines. So that way we're again showing off Virginia. But usually it's a majority of tawny with a little bit of the ruby in there because, again, the strawberry note I think was spot on. I really like that little red fruit note driving in the brightness.
This has the most voluptuous mouthfeel of them all. I mean, all the six, this is the... Oh, this is nice. And chewy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
Chewy.
good.
Real dry
this
on the
is
finish,
perfect
though.
for cigar.
And it is a dry. It's a dry
Yeah.
finish, and I,
Yeah, dry finish. Yeah.
I like the dry finish though. Actually,
So do I. That's why I'm like, normally I don't. But yeah, the characteristic of this is quite nice. Like I said, I'm ready for this
I
one.
also like a good Merlot, and generally they're very dry as well.
Yep.
And I just like that dry finish on that, I guess.
Yeah. I like, Laura, you said cigar, and this is my curl up with a dog and a good book by a fire. That's
Oh yeah, I'm fixing to do that right after this. And I'm glad I'm just gonna save this one. Actually, I think this is the one I'm gonna finish with.
nice. Yeah.
I'm
Am
glad
I
we
the
saved
only
this for
one
the
who
end.
doesn't smoke here?
I'm in the basement. I can't. I'm not. I gotta go outside and smoke. I gotta get the fire going.
Define
Yeah.
Define doesn't
Yeah,
smoke.
I have
Diane.
to go on the back porch.
Huh?
I'm not allowed to-
Define
not allowed to
doesn't smoke.
Cigar,
Well, it
not
means
cigarette.
it means you don't do tobacco, but you're smoking hot.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I feel like if you smoke cigars, you're
Pipe
not
tobacco.
smoking. You're just puffing. So, like,
According
no.
to every dating app out there, you are correct, Sean.
I'm neither puffing nor smoking.
It's the flavor. You're getting the flavor from the tobacco, and it's just like it adds to it. I don't know.
yeah,
It's a thing, I guess.
I didn't
I
think.
know
You
exactly which one I'd pick.
And it's a
for
bad
this, so,
habit.
I'm pretty much a sherry person. Like, I love sherry everything, and that really did shine for me a lot. And
Oh, me too.
this though
Yeah.
is definitely a stronger. Like, if they were to battle each other, this is definitely the one I'm gonna buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
For me,
And I
it's-
have done this one at several tasting parties alongside others, and this one has always come out as one of the top.
Wow.
Yeah, this
I'll
has
tell
to.
you.
I mean,
If you were to add just a touch of peat to this,
Yep.
Oh yeah,
oh my God.
oh yeah.
No.
Yeah. Who said that? Oh, yeah, you're right.
No.
Oh yes.
Go find the Octomore, man.
Fabulous.
You lose that strawberry, and honestly, that
Yeah, True.
light fruit that's on the back end of that nose is just
I know,
really
but-
lovely. Well done.
it
Oh,
is.
that's
That
great.
peat with the
Seriously.
fruit would be
Yeah,
just.
this
Actually,
is
I
the-
agree with him. I think if you add this with a little peat, this would become like an 80s Bowmore.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Oh, it would be good.
Being overruled here, but
Sorry.
How long is this aged for?
Oh, it's about 7 years.
Oh, it shows. Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so
It's still
release a 2 375 set, one with peat, one without, and
Okay, I'll tell the team.
and blend.
No, I mean just a really light peat, just light.
I just blended it
Would
with
be
the
fat.
peat.
Yeah,
and
about
I confirm.
less than
Works.
10 ppm. Less than 10 ppm. Just barely peat. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I agree.
Subtle.
I did a mesquite peat.
Yeah, very
Because
subtle.
really,
Really
it
well.
almost has just a hint of smokiness to it already.
Mm.
Or
You
maybe
know.
finish it in
Maybe
PD
because
cask or
I'm
something
thinking
like
about
that.
it, but
Yeah.
for some reason
I
now
blended
I'm
it with the
getting it.
mesquite
What's
mesquite peat from Delbach, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
You know, I
I
did
love
love
blending
them.
stuff
An
right now.
idea of consistency. Everybody else except me is drinking something recent. I've got batch 10.
Oh yeah. Wow. I don't even do batches anymore.
Hey, listen, if you can't be special and pass it around, don't be showing it off.
Aw.
Batch 10.
yeah.
Well,
I would
funny
say
story.
it's impressive that the strawberries on the nose, but that you can taste it. Like
Yeah.
that I think is what's the most impressive about this.
And there's good plum and chocolate notes too.
Yeah, great.
Nice.
You can look for a few things. You can find some sea salt if you think about it. But
Yeah.
Really,
it's
it
great.
really, you
Salinity.
almost feel like you've just taken a bite of the Valentine's chocolate strawberry kind of with a dark chocolate,
Yeah.
not a sweet chocolate, but like a darker chocolate. That flavor.
Love it.
All right, I like and subscribe to this, but I'm not really sure what that gets me.
How much does this retail for usually?
The 750 I believe is like in the $46, $49 range.
Yeah.
Wow, such a buy. Such a buy.
That's
It
it.
It's a
is
buy.
Yeah.
surprisingly affordable.
That could be a new daily.
And,
Yeah.
and have
That's
you ever
really cheap.
tried?
That's like bottom shelf cheap.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Sorry to everyone else, but I would pay double.
Oh, heck yeah.
Don't
Take
You
get
some
ever
any
go out
ideas.
to tasting events? You ever do tasting events?
Yeah, I love getting out and market when I can because most of my time I'm talking to barrels up in the cask house. But yeah, we've got a team
Tough
that
life.
loves to do stuff.
We're gonna have to exchange information so I can get you up to Philly.
Oh, I'd love that. Absolutely.
People need to taste this. It's quite good.
Oh yeah. Just
Well, I'll plug
This
my
one is
email
this-
address.
I think there's it's just such a tiny niche market right now, the single malts in America.
Mhm.
And I think just over time it's going to explode because it's just got so much more flavor profiles. And I mean, bourbon's bourbon. I mean, well, I
It's
shouldn't
gotta
say
be
that
aged
because
and
there are
matured
some
out.
bourbons that aren't good. But this is very good, and I think the single malts are. I think Scotland has to worry.
Yeah, they seriously have to worry. I think give 10 years, and I think American single malts are going to be.
Exactly.
And that's what we have to do here on Whiskey Mavens, kind of push American single malt because that's a good, rye and American single malts are two things which are. I mean, rye is gaining a lot of traction of late.
Yes.
American single malts, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
talk about the bourbon comfort blanket that Americans are just very familiar with bourbon and sometimes even refer to all whiskey as bourbon or don't understand that it's just one type. So
Exactly.
thank you for the education that you're.
And probably so many of them had the Isla experience when they were young, and they were like,
Yep.
they didn't have a developed palate or whatever you want to call it, or getting just old, and you like stuff that tastes old.
Yeah,
But,
but I agree. Bourbon's just honestly boring compared to this. Sorry,
You're right.
sorry, not sorry, but this I actually you're talking about American single malt. I didn't know about that at all until I was in this group with you guys. So I appreciate this so much.
This is amazing. Just out of curiosity, have you ever tried using any cognac barrels or?
Yes.
Oh, I was about to ask that.
Because you're doing great with the cider and the port cast stuff. I'm just and the Mizuno. What I could suggest is if it's overpowering
Mhm.
and it's hard to work with, you could just do the caps.
Yes, just do the barrel heads. You're exactly right.
Barrel ends, yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about Mizunara?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because that'll
I'm a big Chichibu fan, so
yeah.
Yeah.
It's been proven to work well. Yeah, yeah. And I do have a few cognac casks tucked away.
Oh.
Secrets.
You gotta
Next year,
hook
maybe.
us up with that.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Towards the end.
Yeah.
We're paid more than $50 for that bottle.
This cask cost a lot. Yeah. Some of my most expensive barrels are insane. So yeah.
Okay. So I think we are pretty. Yeah, but we have another 4 minutes to go before. If you have any questions or you want to.
Hey, Amanda, what do you do at the end? Like, when is the end of life of those barrels? What do you do with them?
Well, we give a lot.
Just curious, because
yeah. So we'll give them to local cideries or breweries or wineries. We have one incredible gentleman. His name is Jeff O'Connor, and he lives in Virginia Beach, and he does incredible woodworking. So he'll come and buy some, or we'll like make a trade. He'll make something for me, and that's been really cool. So we try to be very sustainable and find a good home. And my thought is, with trading some of these barrels back and forth, I want these barrels to outlive me. They've got so much potential. If you treat them well, don't let them dry out. Yeah.
Because I was asking, because I do a char rub for my company, Whiskey Grilling Time.
Yeah.
And right now I'm currently using Wilderness Trail, but I'm trying to venture out to get the char shavings inside. And what I do is I reheat those and pulverize them, dry them out, and make a rub out of them. So I'm not sure if you're interested in that, but I'm kind of pitching that because I'm trying to look for distilleries other than Wilderness Trail to kind of.
Yeah, that could be really cool. We have hired a supply chain solutions manager. His name is Brad, and he's phenomenal. And he is taking over, when I'm done with the barrels, all the logistics for where they go next. So,
okay.
I mean, I still maintain some relationships, but if you email me, I can connect you to.
Yeah. If you could drop on your chat,
Yeah, her email is in the chat there. Yeah.
In the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Hey, Amanda, quick question for you here. Do you still have these?
Yes, that was a really fun project. So I did a whiskey truffle with Gearhart's for our port cask whiskey, and it's just so delicious. And so launching our American single malt line, Courage and Conviction, it was kind of my dream. And we partnered up with a lady, Melinda Jardine in New York, and it's women-owned, all ethically sourced chocolates. And so there are 4 whiskeys that are infused with each of the 4 whiskeys that you tasted today. The first chocolate is 70% dark chocolate that goes with the signature malt. There's a chocolate, it's more of I think it's 60% dark chocolate, orange and ginger truffle. It's delicious. That's the bourbon cask aged whiskey. The sherry is toasted hazelnuts, and the cuvee is milk chocolate raspberry.
That sounds divine.
Yeah, I had so much fun with that.
I think I've gained a couple pounds just hearing you.
I wake up in the morning thinking about food and whiskey, and then all day long when I'm working with whiskey, I'm thinking what food I need to have with it. And those 4 were things I talked about all the time. So it's a dream come true. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
What's the best time of the year to visit your distillery?
That is a good one. Spring and fall, hands down. I love it in the wintertime when it snows. Like it's super windy down. It's almost like a glen in Scotland. You pull off the road and there's just mountains, kind of small mountains surrounding the distillery. And it's beautiful. So I say in my office, when the wind blows and it snows, it's like being in a snow globe. In the summertime, it's just beautiful. But spring, everything is the soft green and the sky is just beautiful. But the fall with the leaves and the crisp air, it's just whiskey weather.
Yeah.
Where in Virginia are you guys?
We're in a little one-stop light town called Lovingston. It's between Charlottesville. Yeah, it's just central Virginia, the Blue Ridge Mountains. So it's tucked away in the middle of nowhere, but it's only about 35 minutes drive from Charlottesville and right between Richmond, DC, if you're just off the main interstate.
I got one more question.
Yeah.
Where are you from? You don't sound like you're from Virginia.
I was born in Virginia, moved to Texas when I was 3, New York when I was 7. I've been all over the place. And yeah, I don't know what accents I have, but I've been told that before.
Yeah.
Nobody ever asked me that question.
Nobody asked you that question.
All right, I'll ask you next time.
Yeah.
You're less than 4 hours from me, so we got to talk about what we can do with that distillery tour.
Yeah, no, we should. I think we should do it together if possible. I probably.
Oh, we'll talk.
I plan to do two tours. I plan to go to Sagamore and Virginia Distillery. Yeah.
Perfect.
I love
I'd like to do both of those. I mean,
I'm a big fan of Sagamore too. Nice. I like what they're doing out there.
Yes.
I have a
my event's going to be in September, so stay in. Philly.
Oh yes, it's going to be in September.
Get it on the way down.
Yeah.
Do you have any interesting collaborations with any locations that like maybe do picks or do whatever that you want to plug? Like where else should we go?
Yeah, well, it's funny that we've won World Whiskey Awards Best in Category for that port cask finish 7 years in a row, and then we lost to ourselves for collaboration. Yeah, with other
lost to ourselves.
Yeah, it was really funny. So it was back in 2018 or 19. A bunch of us single malt distilleries got together in Denver, Colorado, and we did a blend. Together, like we all brought barrel samples that we liked, and then they shipped the barrels to my distillery, and we blended and bottled on site. And it's under the blending company Lost Lantern. Nora and Adam are the owners. They're phenomenal people. Can't say enough great things about them. So check them out. They're based in Vermont. And so now they'll do independent bottlings of a bunch of different distilleries, and they really shine a light on American single malts. So, and they ship. So yeah, but that blend, Lost Lantern blend, was us. And that, of course, won World Whiskey Awards Best in Category last year.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And there's some messy smoke in that.
We're looking it up now.
Yeah.
What do we do? Where do we go?
Again, it's the whole sleeping in the rick house thing. The guard.
It's an important job, I guess.
You never know who might come in.
That would be my favorite job. Although I don't know how I'd get home at night.
You are home. That's the point.
Right, you are home.
Somebody would probably have to drive me.
So, Amanda, any last words?
Just huge thank you to you guys for sharing the American single malt love, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for spending time with us. Really, this was great.
Absolutely fantastic.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Amanda, and everybody for exploring this together with me. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that.
Expect emails.
We like to sing.
Yeah, really. Thanks, Amanda.
Let's do a tour. I'm ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
All I got's time.